Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I couldn't see any viewers there for a moment. I thought that we had no audience, but they've also sort of suddenly popped up. Welcome to this online deep dive session as part of the Safer Internet Forum 2024. We will make a start in a moment, but I want to just allow a little bit of time for people to enter this room and join this session. So we'll just give people a few moments because I can see the number of viewers slowly ticking up. So we will make a start in about a minute's time. Okay, I think we will make a start, although the number of viewers is slowly trickling up, so I'm sure there'll be some people that join us in the next few moments, and everybody is welcome. Hello, welcome to this online deep dive session as part of the Safer Internet Forum 2024. My name is Gareth Court. I am a member of the Digital Citizenship team at European Schoolnet, coordinating the Safer Internet Forum. Hopefully, many of you who are joining us on this session today have had a chance to watch some of the live stream of the other sessions that have taken place in person in Brussels this morning. If you have, I really hope you found those useful. They've been some really interesting sessions and some really fantastic work by the young people who are involved as well, really inspirational. So now it's your turn to get a little bit more interactive and to participate more actively. This session is designed to mirror the in-person sessions that are currently taking place at the forum in Brussels. They are taking place across a number of different themes and topics. While we can't cover all of those, we are going to cover 3 different topics in this session, and each of those topics in person in Brussels is being hosted by a number of experts. But we're not left out because our online session has got 3 experts with us here to share their thoughts, their research and expertise as well. So we've got Laura Higgins, who's Senior Director of Community Safety and Civility at Roblox. We've got Dr. Chelly Maes, who's a guest professor in communication sciences at the University of Antwerp and a postdoctoral researcher at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And last but not least, we've got Davinia Muscat, who is a helpline officer and hotline analyst at BeSmartOnline, part of the Maltese Safer Internet Centre. So welcome to all 3 of you. Just to explain to our audience what the format is going to be for this session, we are going to hear each speaker in turn, and then we will pause after each presentation to allow some time for questions. Please do post any questions you have for any of our speakers in the chat, and I will pick them up there as they come in and field those to our presenters after each presentation. When all 3 presentations have finished, we will have an opportunity for further questions and reflections and discussion, and you're very welcome to enter your thoughts and your ideas into the chat as well. Unfortunately, Dr. Maes does need to leave us midway through the session, so she gets top billing. She gets to go first, and you'll be able to ask your questions to her throughout her presentation and at the end as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass over to you, Chelly. Feel free to share your slides.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Part of your screen. I'm going to share my screen now. Yes, can everyone see? Yes, okay, perfect. Now I can see you all. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. As Garrett already told you, I'm Chelly Maes. I'm a guest professor at the University of Antwerp and also postdoctoral researcher at the National Center of Technology Use, Brain and Psychological Development of the University of North Carolina. And I'm also affiliated to KU Leuven, where I co-supervise 2 PhD students. And one of the PhD students is working on more the positive potentials of pornography uses among children. And broadly, my research mostly focuses on youth's digital media use and how this relates to critical developmental tasks, including sexuality, but also body image development. So adolescence marks a period of self-discovery. The interplay between biological and psychosocial changes stimulates youth formation of their sexuality, which is referred to as an inclusive category encompassing how you describe, feel, or express their sexual selves. And the exploration of one's sexuality spans a range of behaviors within the personal and interpersonal context, including the establishment of romantic relationships and talk about sex with peers. But more of in a personal context, you discover the sexuality to the creation of sexual fantasies, masturbation, and of course the uses of media in a very sexual way. Now, there are numerous affordances of digital media that can facilitate youth's development of sexuality. A media affordance typically includes the unique features of a medium that allow media users to engage in a particular action. For example, think of the affordance of the internet to anonymously post and view sexual content, or to meet sexual suitors across the globe while sitting at home using your smartphone. These affordances invite you to use media in a sexual way. And in the middle box of this figure, you can see the different types of digital sexuality-oriented media uses that have been identified by researchers. And we will particularly focus, of course, on online pornography today. And online pornography refers to professionally produced or user-generated pictures or video clips on or from the internet that are actually intended to arouse the viewer. So the motivation and the reason behind the content is part of the definition. And these videos and pictures, they depict sexual activities such as masturbation as well as vaginal penetration in a very unconcealed way, often with close-ups on genitals. Now, the use of pornography has, of course, led to heated debates in public, and these debates are unfortunately not always building on the available scientific knowledge, leading to a variety of perspectives that have been covered in these debates. Some claim that watching pornography is healthy, while others warn for its detrimental effects of its use on, more specifically, child development. And some even also ignore entirely the scientific relevance, claiming that research has been done by more conservative and highly religious groups. Now, the internet has changed how users access pornography considerably. Nowadays, people don't have to go to the news shop or a video renting store to access pornography. Pornography is just one click away, and it's also anonymous and affordable since it's oftentimes just free. And this is also reflected in the amount of adolescents who use pornography. In Belgium, we see that online pornography use is also highly common, mostly among boys, with 75% of boys indicating that they watch it and 40% of girls. And similar consumption rates can actually be found in other countries such as Sweden and the Netherlands, but also in the United States of America. This is really facilitated through the accessibility, the anonymity, and the affordability of this content. Now, scholars have called the portrayals of sex in pornography very unrealistic. Here stems also these concerns regarding the uses of pornography among children. And this is mainly because of three biases that have been found in popular or mainstream pornography. Firstly, most sexual activities in pornography prevail in an uncommitted casual context. So usually they are for recreational purposes and they refer to more casual sex without it being in the context of a loving romantic relationship. The second bias is that there is a lack of responsibilities at an emotional, but also at a health level. For instance, there's no attention to individuals' emotional needs, and there is no attention to health responsibilities, such as taking precautions for sexually transmitted diseases by using, for instance, a condom. Condom use is almost never depicted in pornography content. And a final bias then refers to the gender stereotypical roles that are depicted. Women are more sexually submissive than men, are more often sexually objectified, and often the targets of verbal but also physical aggression. But this should also be nuanced a bit because we see that female-friendly pornography is being popularized, which often includes also more sex-positive themes such as sexual agency in women. Even though exposure to pornography is illegal for adolescents, youth before they reach the age of 18 typically already have seen pornographic content. And this is also shown in the consumption rates previously discussed. And part of this exposure happens accidentally. So we see that 68% of adolescents in the US, for instance, has ever unintentionally encountered or by accident encountered pornographic content, meaning that they, for instance, search for the word pussy online, but they bump into pornographic content. And some youth, of course, also intentionally search for pornographic content, especially when they are growing older and they know which connotations can be attached to the word pussy. When looking at children who use pornography, there are some differences in how often they search for pornographic content. The most examined predictors can be found in this slide. In the gray, you can find the predictors that have been tested, but that not have been consistently supported in the research. And in green, you can see the predictors that have shown predictive value across studies. So in almost all studies, we see that older adolescents and boys typically use pornography more frequently than girls and younger adolescents. And in terms of gender, this can be explained by the discourse that watching pornography is an inherently masculine behavior. Following sexual double standards, sexual pleasure and agency are considered to characterize male sexuality, while women and girls are supposed to be less preoccupied with gratifying their sexual pleasure. And also mainstream pornography are typically created for male viewers, given the almost consistent focus on the male sexual gaze. This also refers to the submissive roles in which women and girls can often be seen in pornographic content. Also, we see that adolescents with higher sensation-seeking levels, meaning that adolescents who often seek for thrills, and also advanced pubertal timing, and also those who have negative relationships with their family, also more often view pornography. You'd have a variety of reasons and motivations to watch pornography. Some are especially looking for excitement and thus claim to look at pornography due to reasons of sexual arousal. Others say that they are curious to see what pornography looks like, or even indicate they want to learn from pornography online. So they want to learn what sexual activities look like. Others have claimed to be exploring their sexuality and find pornography an important tool in this explorative context. This is especially true for sexual minority youth and members of the LGBTQ community who are still quite reluctant in expressing their sexual identity. So pornography actually offers also a very safe and anonymous space for sexual minority youth to freely explore their sexual feelings. And also some, especially during COVID times, report motivations related to boredom regulation, loneliness regulation, and stress regulation. And if this happens at very high levels in combination with high frequencies of pornography use, these can also be indicators of more problematic pornography uses. So not your typical pornography behaviors. Now, when it comes to conducting research about pornography, there are different ways to study the effects. One way is just by asking users themselves how they perceive this pornography consumption is actually influencing them. And typically, scholars find that these users especially report positive effects of using pornography and much less frequently negative effects. Moreover, not all individuals report equally these positive effects. Research shows that men report larger positive effects than women, but also that frequent consumers, so those who see pornography also as more realistic and those who masturbate more often, also have higher perceptions of perceiving pornography as something helpful. And this is often referred to as an optimism bias in users, with users overestimating the beneficial outcomes and often underestimating the detrimental effects. Now, what we see when looking at more survey research and longitudinal research, we see that a first line of research has explored adolescents' pornography use in relation to their sexual attitudes. And what we can see is that it has been consistently related to having positive casual sex attitudes, so standing more positive towards having casual sex, and also that these adolescents are more internalizing stereotypical gender roles. And we also see some inconsistent research showing that it leads to a higher acceptance of aggression towards women and also a higher rape myth acceptance, meaning that you apply a victim blaming perspective on victims of sexual aggression and sexual harassment. Another line then focuses on sexual assumptions, and we see here that pornography has consistently been linked to sexual performance orientation, to sexual uncertainties, dissatisfaction, and preoccupancy, which is a little bit related to performance orientation, meaning that you're often thinking about how you perform in bed and how good your sexual activities are, which can really disturb your own sexual experiences. And then lastly, scholars have also explored youth's actual sexual behaviors, and we see that those adolescents who use more pornography, they more easily initiate sexual intercourse and petting behavior. They engage more in casual sex. And regarding sexual aggression and the engagement in sexual aggression, studies are very inconsistent and mostly point to the more violent types of pornography being linked to sexual aggression. Now, there are some attention points that need to be acknowledged when talking about pornography research. Effect sizes are generally small. This means that even though research can find consistently an effect, for instance, that watching pornography can lead to an increased sexual dissatisfaction in youth, that this relationship is also very weak in strength. So it only means that adolescent sexual satisfaction will change in very small proportions. And we often speak of a more accumulation of effects in which we have to take into account other factors that can also affect your sexual satisfaction. For instance, your peer relations, or how your parents have raised you regarding moral values towards sexuality. Moreover, the studied behaviors and attitudes are low in their strengths and in their prevalence. This means that, for example, in their attitudes towards casual sex, we see that youth already have a very low positive attitudes towards casual sex. So it's not really that they form very extreme attitudes towards, for instance, casual sex or more gender stereotypical beliefs. Finally, there has been an inattention to different types of pornography genres and how they relate to specific outcomes. And this is something that we're currently working on, more specifically by making a distinction between mainstream and paraphilic pornography. So with mainstream pornography, we typically refer to the more affectionate sexual interactions that more or less relate to how sexual interactions in reality also appear. You have your specific sexual behaviors such as oral sex or masturbation. You have group sex. You have female-specific pornography such as MILF content and non-heterosexual content. So these are all part of the more mainstream pornography genres, while paraphilic pornography genres are really more extreme. It includes bondage and dominance, violent sex, really extreme fetishes often related to race as well, and more bizarre or extreme content like, for instance, bestiality. And it's very important to disentangle the different effects of these genres because they can relate to different outcomes. For instance, we see that actually watching mainstream pornography can be healthy for what we call adolescent sexual arousability. And sexual arousability refers to the degree in which adolescents can be turned on and experience arousability in offline contexts, so more in day-to-day context. For instance, when they're fantasizing about their crush, or when they're reading a book and a sexual page comes up and sexual activities are described. So here it is part of a healthy sexual self-concept if adolescents can experience this arousability. And paraphilic pornography was not related to this. So it is very important to distinguish these different genres. And lastly, we're currently also paying attention to something that has been received systematic inattention. So the positive potential of pornography use. We're going to identify what positive themes might be in pornography and how adolescents describe these positive themes. And we're also developing a more consistent measure and comprehensive measure of so-called porn literacy, which is like a framework from which young people can critically examine and make sense of the sexual images they see. And it is it consists of 2 dimensions. So your knowledge structures, which really allows adolescents to understand what is harmful content and what is positive content, to identify these types of content. And the effective responses is really about monitoring and controlling your emotional responses in relation to selecting content. For instance, acknowledging that you may be turned on more by content that is often been linked to sexual aggression towards women and rape myth acceptance. So it's really about recognizing these emotions that come up and monitoring these emotions. But this is something that we're currently working on at KU Leuven. So, and that note, I will end my presentation. I will stop sharing my screen. I hope you all learn a bit more about the field of pornography research, and I'm looking forward to any of your questions.
Thank you, Chelly. That was a whistle-stop tour through a lot of stuff. I'm sure people are probably just trying to gather their thoughts there, because you covered a huge amount in a very short space of time, but really interesting and lots of details there. So if anyone does have any questions, please pop them into the chat. We do have a couple of questions and comments in there already, so we'll come to those. Similarly to Laura and Davinia, based on your experiences in this field as well, if you have any questions for Chelly, then please do chip in a moment. So there's a question here from Martina, and she says, do you happen to have some details on the study's design? How can they measure effects of pornography, and are those real effects or correlations?
Yes, that's a very good question. We typically use survey research, longitudinal research as well among adolescents, because, well, ethically we're not really allowed to expose adolescents in more of a laboratory context to pornography, to pornographic content, because that's just not allowed. We cannot make adolescents watch pornography, so it's typically via survey research. But we do know from experimental research among young adults where this can be done, that it really relates to these different effects as well. But among adolescents, we typically talk about relations, which can be over long term or short term. And we typically do this via survey research, so asking them about how often they generally watch pornography on a daily basis, maybe, or on a weekly basis, monthly basis. We also ask them what they typically search for when looking for pornography, so the keywords they're searching on these websites, and then we can code them and categorize them based on mainstream or paraphilic, and then we ask them about their attitudes and behaviors. For instance, rape myth acceptance, you ask them about victims of sexual harassment and how they think about these victims, asking them things like, well, they already had a bad reputation, or they asked for it. These are these typical types of questions by which you, for instance, can measure rape myth acceptance. And then using complicated statistical analyses, we can then explore these different relations.
Thank you, Chelly, for providing some more detail on that one. Lots of considerations there, and obviously you noted ethical considerations as being a key one in here. Martina also followed up with just another comment further down that said, is there a list of studies that you recommend reading that you might be able to provide to the audience? Obviously, you don't need to go and find those immediately now, but if there are some studies that you think would be useful for people to read and to gather further insight, then please do share them on to the team, and obviously we can pass them on to all participants after the SIF.
I know there's the most comprehensive literature review on different studies that have been conducted, particularly among adolescents, are those from Peter and Valkenburg, but I can share them online, and it really encompasses these different types of predictors that have been found across different studies, but also the outcomes related to attitudes and behaviors. And I also recently wrote a book chapter together with Professor Paul Wright of the University of Arizona. And there we also summarize the entire field of pornography research among children, but we also specifically pay attention to problematic pornography use, which I haven't discussed yet here, but which is also something very interesting that can be delved into. But I will make sure I can share these studies in a way with you.
Thank you, Chelly. I think we'll save problematic pornography use for another time, for another rabbit hole. Let's just keep moving down the questions and comments. Lots of great stuff here. Thank you, everyone, for adding these. So we'll come to Penelope next. She says, I'm curious as to the most popular channels that youth use to access this content. Are there any particular platforms and sites that consistently come out that they mention as being places they go to for pornographic content?
Well, it's the typical mainstream sites like YouPorn or RedTube. It's these different types of typical pornographic websites that you'd typically access when looking for pornography. But we also see that more and more pornographic content is being shared on X, formerly Twitter, because Elon Musk is now allowed that users can share such types of harmful content, and unfortunately children can also access this content. And I know in the field, or there are some debates and more of societal concerns about the uses of OnlyFans among young adults and children, but for children and adolescents, this behavior is typically not reported or studied, and we see that adolescents actually don't really bother wanting to pay for pornographic content because you can just access it online. So these users are really for a specific type of user who really wants like a personalized experience, but for the more general audience looking for pornographic content, they typically go to the mainstream websites like YouPorn or RedTube and so on.
Thank you for those insights. There was some research done a couple of years ago here in the UK by the Children's Commissioner for England that found similar findings, as that young people probably experienced porn most readily on Twitter, as it was before it became X when that study was done, then mainstream pornography sites, then Snapchat, then Instagram, I think was the order. So there were clearly other social media sites where this content was easily found by youth. Let's keep moving down the questions. Let's see where we've got to. We've got to Liz. So Liz says, how do you see the role of consent on youth and online pornography? So how does that affect consent, do you feel?
That's a good question, because we typically see that in mainstream pornography, not really that much attention is being given to consent, because it's not really sexy to look at the characters in the videos, or the actors in the videos. They're mostly there to turn you on as quickly as possible, so they don't really go through the hassle of asking consent or asking if they like it. So that's typically something that's not often depicted in pornographic content. But so far there haven't really been any studies linking it to consent. We're currently looking at it with a new project to see if pornography use can also learn children to discuss their boundaries during sexual activities, and to be more communicative and have more bigger of so-called self-efficacy when conducting this sexual behavior. But for now, we're not really aware of the links regarding consent, but it's something really interesting we need to look into, because I definitely think there's something out there in terms of these relations. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, and obviously you mentioned earlier about viewers of pornography who expressed more positive outcomes than negative outcomes, and some of those you said were obviously ones that perceive pornography as being realistic, which then obviously brings other issues into consent as well.
Yeah.
I'll keep going. Are you okay to keep going with questions? They're continuing to come in, which is brilliant. I'm conscious you have to go soon. Are you okay to take a few more questions before we move on?
Of course.
Brilliant.
I just have to leave at 2:30, so I still have some time.
No problem. We'll make sure that we fit in that time. Where did we get to? So Stefan said, do you have data about addiction to pornography? You sort of talked about that a few moments ago in terms of problematic pornography.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say anything further on that, or if that's a discussion for another time.
I don't really have, like, I don't really know the specific statistics out of my head, but I do know there has been research done among children who engage in more problematic pornography consumption, which really relates to very frequent pornography consumption, like a few times a day, in combination with different motivators like boredom regulation or regulation of loneliness. And it also relates to another component, meaning that you more and more isolate yourself from your social context and from your peers and your family. I do know these numbers are very, very small, of course. These are, yeah, these are special cases, but in the end, it's crucial to pay attention to these special cases as well, because the effects of problematic pornography use are even larger, especially considering the developmental context of adolescence, and really, in which really, like, the social context is necessary for good psychosocial functioning. So this can really disrupt this context. But this is also written down in the book chapter, which I can also share if you want to. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Let's keep moving down. So I'll try and get through as many of these questions as I can, I promise. So Clinton says, is there any research that can validate the positive aspects of pornography? And if so, how can it be contextual, especially speaking from the African context, as pornography is rather seen there as extremely harmful and morally inappropriate? So you did sort of touch upon that at the end of your presentation, that there's less research around the positive aspects, but do you know of any specific ones that relate to race?
We know that typically when you intersect race with gender and you look at the stereotypes that are depicted in pornography, we know that, for instance, Black women are more often sexually submissive, but also victimized through sexual aggression than white women, for instance. And they're also part of they're also often being fetishized, which can really affect identity development of Black women. But it's the same for Black men, for instance, who are expected to be very dominant in sexual interactions, but also then in other interactions. So there are some studies indeed that show that there is more to these individual differences when it comes to identity and the impact of pornography research, because how different ethnicities are represented in pornography is also very different. Some experience more sexualization than others, some experience more aggression than others. So yeah, the research shows that some groups of individuals are more harmfully affected. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll keep going down the list. Another quick question from Liz was, are there any current recommendations for resources for parents and educators on helping young people understand online pornography and the risks around it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm from Belgium, of course, so I'm only aware of the Belgian resources, but I think when you look at Child Focus as well, they really have some cool educational toolboxes surrounding pornography. And I think attending these types of conferences and seminars can already be really helpful. More in the Belgian context, I know Sensoa is working on it, and MediaWays as well, which is the expert center for media literacy. They're also paying attention to the impact of pornography, and they also develop some really cool education resources to also integrate when you're talking with your children about these types of content, but also when you're a teacher, for instance, and you want to integrate it in your classes as well. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm glad you mentioned Child Focus there as well, because they're currently involved in a project along with European Schoolnet and other partners from some of the other safer internet centres around gender-based violence. And although pornography doesn't feature greatly in that project, in the Enable project, themes around consent and non-consensual intimate image abuse, which kind of ties into this topic as well a bit, are featured in there. So that's quite a useful one to be aware of. I'm just very quickly going to bounce over to Davinia and Laura about any resources that you know of that are great for teaching around pornography.
We did create a specific one regarding how to talk to your teenager about pornography, but I think we had taken that resource from someone else's Safer Internet Center, which at the top of my head I cannot remember, but one can find it in our toolbox as well on BeSmartOnline.info. That's what's coming from the top of my head right now. Okay.
Brilliant, thank you. Laura, based on your previous helpline expertise, do you have any resources you can recommend?
Yes, similarly. So I would say the UK Safer Internet Centre and ChildNet, where you used to be, Gareth, I know that they have some really good resources on this as well. But taking it away just a little from the Safer Internet Centres, our friends at Internet Matters in the UK also have some really good topic resources on this, particularly for parents having those kind of really difficult conversations. So that's another one to go check.
Brilliant. Thank you all for those great recommendations. Let's keep moving down the list because I know we're tight on time for Chelly. Barry asks, violence in porn is a concern. Have you researched that specifically?
Yes, there's a huge number of research regarding violence and pornography. It's also part more of the paraphilic genre. So paraphilic genre focusing on sadomasochism, but also bondage and violent sexual acts. But most of the violence and pornography research has been done among young adults, and we see from this research that that not a lot of beneficial things can be attached to it, to watching really violent pornography. It can be related to heightened sexual aggression towards women, more internalized sexual gender stereotypes, the development of rape myth acceptance, the development of objectification of women, as well as even some, there are some studies that have also linked individuals who have been prosecuted for sexual harassment to these types of pornography use. So violent pornography has not yet been linked to any benefits when it comes to sexual attitudes or behaviors.
And thank you. And I guess the next question from Matt sort of feeds into that. He said, what do you think is driving the demand for that kind of violent or abusive pornography? Where does that come from?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question because it's always like the chicken or the egg. I mean, do these pornographic sites, do they create this need and for more violent pornography, for more extreme pornographic content? It's the same with like pornographic content focusing on teens or between a stepsister and a stepbrother. These are also very common themes, which is often difficult to understand if it's really inherently part of your own sexual preferences or if you have been socialized towards it. We also see there are some studies on desensitization and habituation, which indicate that the more you watch pornography, the more desensitized you become towards more extreme sexual stimuli you see in pornographic content, and thus the more extreme sexual stimuli you're seeking out to be actually gratified, because the other stimuli aren't gratifying you anymore. And there are some studies that confirm this, but other studies also don't confirm this. So it's a very nuanced perspective on this, and research is very inconsistent regarding this.
Thank you. Next question. I'm not sure if this falls slightly out of your remit, but Renee asks, is there a correlation between violence in porn and vaginismus, if I pronounce that right?
I'm not aware of any studies focusing on this, but that would be that would be interesting. You just gave me a thought for another research we can conduct.
There we go. Audience suggestions. Fantastic. Yeah. Davinia's also got a question. Davinia, do you want to ask your question yourself as you're here?
Yes, sure. So I was wondering, we hear from a lot of the younger generation, like from kids, they are much more into anime. And I'm wondering if part of your study also covered pornographic material which stems out of anime, like hentai or some kind of other thing. And if that also affects them the same way as in watching real life porn.
So it's, yeah, I understand. So it's more of the question whether it's real or not.
Would that still affect them the same kind of way? Watching anime or cartoons and real life would still be affecting them?
Yeah, but that's a good question, because it's mostly what we see that's an important mediating mechanism is perceived realism. So you can, of course, you can rationally say, well, hentai is not in any case the same as real sexual acts, because it's also drawn, it's a cartoon, but it's more about the perception, and some visual aspects and narrative aspects can actually enhance this perceived realism. There are no studies that I'm aware of that currently specifically focus on hentai and how it's and perceived realism, but I can imagine if adolescents have the same perceived realism states when watching hentai as they're watching real pornography, that these effects will be similar, because it's all really about being in the video at the moment and enjoying it. That really explains the effect.
No, I would think so. I was just wondering if there's anything to kind of to back that up as well. But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And final question for you, I promise, final one from Penelope. Is there any evidence about whether the age at which children lose their virginity has been influenced by online interaction or arousal?
Yeah. We see that the more adolescents watch pornography, or the earlier they start, the earlier their sexual initiation. But it's also, again, this is also correlational. So it could also be that children who initiate sexual activities earlier, they're also more prone to watch pornography earlier. So it's not really known that it will cause this early sexual initiation. It does make you more preoccupied about sexual activities. It does make children more aware of it, and it can also help them in a way learn about sexual activities and how sexual activities are done. So it could be that children firstly use this as a tool to then be more confident in taking the next step to engage in sexual activities. But we see that there is indeed a correlation. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Another chicken and the egg scenario there, amongst many. Chelly, thank you so much for taking all the time to answer those questions, and brilliant questions from the audience. Please do keep those coming for our next two speakers. But I know obviously you need to leave now, so I'd just like to take this opportunity to say a massive thank you for coming and joining us at the forum today to share your expertise. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Fantastic. Brilliant questions. As I said, please do keep those coming for our next two speakers. We're going to shift focus from pornography to something that's just as dark and not lightening the mood, I'm afraid. We're going to move over to cyberbullying. So we're going to go to Davinia next to talk about her thoughts and expertise around cyberbullying. Over to you when you're ready.
Okay. You can see it. Okay. Right. So my name is Davinia Marie, and I'm part of the BeSmartOnline. For anyone who doesn't know me, I work on the Safer Internet Center here in Malta, as well as on the helpline and the hotline. Yes, I do all three in my day. So what's beneficial about my role is that while I'm actually out and speaking to children and raising awareness with children, it also gives them the confidence to actually come up to me afterwards and speak to me face to face. And then the helpline is actually there face to face. But we also have someone can call us through the national helpline, and then it comes to us. So we do intervene on cases, and most of the cases which we do see, which we are seeing on the rise, is always, and it's a very fascinating subject for us, is cyberbullying. And I will go through what we see. So as an overview, for those who were maybe following the Safer Internet Forum before we had the break, they were speaking about cyberbullying and on that one comment, who can drive a person over the edge. So for us, when we come to these kind of cases, we look at the situation to decipher whether it is cyberbullying or not, it's when the situation is ongoing for a long period of time with the real malicious intention to really break down and to really be aggressive towards the individual. So it's, for us, it's not a one-time thing. We consider that more of a like a troll kind of thing, or of a toxic environment, which might be a bit more easier to manage. But when it is real cyberbullying, it's even though you block the person on one platform, he might come in from another platform, and the issues that they really target to really hurt you are very personal. Meaning, we've had cases, for example, we had like a child who lost a family member, so he gets targeted with the death of the family members. It's not something that someone from the other side of the world can know about you, but it's very specific to your situation. So we believe and we feel that cyberbullying is more of an extension of what is happening within the classrooms and within schools. Whereas before, it would have stopped the moment that you leave the front gate and you enter home and you can rest. Now it's kind of ongoing, even online, and the victim that would have otherwise been in person, you know, the one who's the bully, the macho, would be the bully, and the victim would have been a bit timid. Online, the roles are reversed. So the one who would be quiet in the classroom could be the one who is really stirring up the pot and really putting pressure on the other person. And we feel that this is not just it is not a relationship between the bully and the victim. This is the whole classroom, because everyone knows what's going on. Everyone feels what's going on. Everyone might be afraid to speak up, or they're aware of something which is making them feel uncomfortable. So when we intervene, we kind of intervene as a whole. And I will speak a bit more in depth on this. So there are also situations where we might consider it as cyberbullying, especially when it comes from these gaming communities or from these online environments. Because again, we've had another case where the people did not actually know the person, but because they were so within the same kind of group online, they kept coming from different other channels to really hurt the boy, and even extending it to other forms like sextortion. And I will also, for example, he did not ever create any material of his own. He was just happy creating dubbing videos for what he would like to do. But these three individuals really wanted to target him, and they started to create content with his face on deep fake content and deep nudes about him. So it kind of, from cyberbullying, it started to shift to another form of to really harass the person. So the challenges that we see that young people are facing nowadays is kind of twofold. Is whether you want to protect them from not spending so much time online. And if you are spending so much time online, it's like all spheres, you're going to be targeted some way or another. So we've had cases that because they wanted to respect their boundaries and they wanted time off online, they were being cyberbullied by being omitted and being taken out of the group, or not being included in upcoming decisions that as a group they were taking, for example, to go out with or to create something online. They were being marginalized and omitted out of the group, which also hurts quite a bit, especially for young developing minds, where your belonging to a group is really accentuated at that age. So even though, let's say the parents say, oh, I don't want to give you can't be online all the time. Now it's time to do your homework. Let's switch it off so that you can concentrate. And because they took this decision within their home, even the parent was getting attacked by other parents when she approached them saying, listen, it's not right that they are all the time targeting my child because she's trying to do her homework. She's like, it's your fault because you are not allowing her to be online chatting on WhatsApp as soon as she gets home until she sleeps. And it kind of, even the parent became at fault and bullied from the other parents because she was trying her best to take care of her own child. And but let's say, okay, so you are online now and you're a bit more savvy, and it's okay for your family that you spend time online. But when you are online, we see that the cyberbullying really gets amplified to a point where, as I said before, we think that it starts from within the classroom, from within the schools, but it can get amplified so much that there could be even, it could be cross schools, so other schools join in. We had a case, for example, of two girls who were friends, and let's say person A and person B, and person A, well, they were friends and they fell out, and person B started to attack person A. Person A said, no, this is not right, and tried to stand up for herself, and person B accused her of being racist. And she started to attack her online, creating content where she was being racist. And therefore, she kind of brought in groups of people online who did not know the girl at all to target her ex-friend with a situation which she had no say in it at all, and she was receiving death threats and even threats regarding to if they find her online, they will offline, they will bully her out, they will threaten her, and they will hit her and gang up on her and that kind of thing. And it got a bit out of hand in that manner. So the situation doesn't just remain online, it can really be felt offline, and people who are not at all within the same circle of friends could also witness and be part of the situation. We had another case, for example, that it was the hairdresser of the village who approached us to let us know that a child within a school was being targeted. So far removed, but there can be so many eyes that the situation can make it really big, right? And hate speech can, yes, and for the case of the hate spreads much more easily when it's online. And we are seeing also problematic content being created by AI generated content. A few months ago, I think about 2 months ago, we had a case where this girl lost her friend to suicide. And it had been already 2 years. She had grieved him and she still misses him. And these groups of boys wanted to annoy her. I don't know what the reason was, but they started to cyberbully her by creating deep fake videos with the face of the boy that had passed away, as if he was still alive, and joking around as if he was still there. Which again, we feel that the level of creativity that cyberbullies really invest in this thing is sometimes it's very interesting and it's mesmerizing, because they just come out of the blue with the way of how they really want to hurt a person. At the same time, it's becoming extremely alarming with the methods that they're using, because I mean that really hurts deep within you, you know. We are also seeing that the age of cyberbullying is lowering down, whereas before it was maybe the teenagers where they're still starting to explore technology. We've had even cases of 7-year-olds who are sending messages, not even through online, it was SMS, but this was this year. A 7-year-old started to send messages to this other girl saying, "Are you still alive? How did you not jump off a cliff? How are you still breathing?" It's like instigating suicide with the level. And again, we were surprised by how young the age was to actually go out of your way to use technology at, you know, in the time of rest, to really be thinking of someone who you might really want to annoy, and sending not just mean messages, but really like instigating suicide messages at such a young age. So I was asked, why do you think people are not reporting cyberbullying so much, or why do children don't step forward? And we've had ample of discussions during our during Rights for You. We hold the Office of the Commissioner for Children, we hold these 2-day workshops with children, and we discuss things. And we also, when we go to schools, we do sessions, for example, yesterday and this morning. When we speak to children, we do try to put these questions forward, like why don't you stand up, or why don't you speak up? And these are some of the things that I'm mentioning now on the screen are what they are most likely to reply with. So, for example, there is this "don't be a snitch" mentality, which I always challenge them, because we're not in America and we're not in a jail. We are still young, we are still children, we are in a community. So we should have a right to feel comfortable to speak up when something is wrong. But this "don't be a snitch" kind of mentality is really permeated, and it really stops from people to step up and to try and get the right support to stop the situation from happening. And there's this kind of normalization of bullying as well, because it's normal that people cyberbullying. So you just have to deal with it. It's only a joke. There's nothing you can do. It's what happens, right? It's life. So again, there's this kind of, it feeds into this helpless feelings, like it's what happens. People cyberbully. So you just have to live through it and kind of move on. This really, this kind of behavior is seen a lot in the bystanders, because they see something happening, they know that it's wrong, but it's what happens. Like, if I speak up, it's going to turn against me, and I don't want to be included in the cyberbullying, and therefore this helpless feeling. And they believe that even though they report, nothing might happen. It might actually happen out of when reporting. And there were situations that we've heard of children coming up to us after these sessions telling us, but I did report and the school turned against me because I reported. Because sometimes the children who are being picked on online might be the ones who are a bit naughty in school. So when they actually speak up for help, it is like, it's your fault because you're actually naughty. So again, they don't actually get the support that they need. Or because the school has a reputation that they want to uphold, and they try to hide it behind under the carpet, hoping that it will magically disappear, or tell us that it's because it happened after school hours, then it's not their fault. They have nothing to do with it, and therefore it's outside. They wash their hands from it because it's not on their school property. And so the children feel again helpless for speaking up, but nothing actually happens. And this kind of feel like they are empowering the bully to keep on bullying, because if the bully is not being told that what he's doing is wrong and that it's hurting other people, then and then you are re-victimizing the victim in the situation, it adds up to this feeling of helplessness. And we've had cases where, for example, when it's exam time, they will not deal with the situation, and then they will leave it until the last day of the school, and they will start calling us up because we have this cyberbullying case. Like, now you're talking to us when everyone's gone home. How are we going to reach them? How can we actually work with the children to either to have the skills to speak up, either have the skills to manage their own emotions, because we're seeing a lot that the level of empathy is starting to lower a lot. We do not know if it is coming from the type of games that they're watching. We do not know if it is because they're self-regulating a lot with the screen, so they're not getting in touch with their inner self. We don't know what it is, but we're seeing the lack of empathy lowering, and the level of respect of one another is lowering each year. And so it becomes a bit of a struggle when it's the last day of school and everyone's gone home. And all we can do is wait for summer to go over, hope if something comes up, we give the resources to the parents, that if they keep on being threatened or being messaged during summer holidays, they can reach out to us again. So we see what we'll do. Every situation is different. Every case has a life of its own. So we try to see the case for what it is, and we try to move along accordingly to what is happening. The things that we always say, that we always mention for children, the good thing that when it's happening online, you have the evidence, right? Because it's there in black and white, you can record it and you can show, listen, see, this is what happened. So that's the good, that's the only good part about cyberbullying, because it's not just what I said against what you said. So we tell them to always save the evidence, to share and talk to a trusted adult, and to report to the authorities or through the platform as needed. But I think, as I mentioned, it cannot stop there. It cannot stop just between the cyberbully and the bully. I think what we do is we intervene as a classroom, because we want to really make an emphasis on people to be upstanders, because if everyone stands up for what is right, there is a shift of balance, you know, from the bully, it can shift to those who really want to mean well. And we also believe and we feel that it is a cry for help, especially from the bully side, because at least I believe that no happy person wants to see other people miserable. If you are happy, you want to make other people happy. If you are miserable, you want to see other people miserable. So for us at that age, I think it is really a cry for help, to not only help the victim in that case, but also the bully to understand his emotions and to put them forth in a more positive or a more constructive manner. Maybe he's being irritated, but he doesn't know how to voice it, and instead he's inclined to cyberbully in order to irritate the other person back. But that's not the way. So sometimes it's giving them the right skills and the right tools. For example, during summer, the summer holidays, we also have summer schools here in Malta, and we take that time, the opportunity to work on empathy. We have these friendship cards, we go into classrooms, we take a big shoe with us so that children really put on the shoe of the other person. And with the cards, they can, okay, so if I'm the bully right now, I'm feeling angry actually, and I'm feeling hurt as well. That's why I'm kind of bullying. So they kind of really feel through their emotions. But we do have children sometimes which still surprise us, because they're very adamant, no, I will be the bully at every cost kind of thing. But it's okay. Some will need more time than just our 45 minutes of intervention, let's say that. But at least we do try to emphasize more on the emotional aspect and to learn how to be more empathic in our approach. And yes, we focus a lot more on kindness. So it's not just about telling children what not to do, but what to do instead. So show them how to be kind and how kindness can actually, you can reap a lot more positive effects from being kind to one another, rather than just don't cyberbully, you know, because what are they going to do instead? And yesterday, children do come to their own conclusion. Yesterday, I put this question forward to one of the kids, and it's like, he was explaining to me how he was happy that he started to be toxic in a gaming environment, like telling someone off because he had a noob skin, like this really not so nice skin of a game. And I told him, but what did you take out of it? What good came out of it? He's like, nothing. It's like, what if you were kind to him instead? What could you have gained from it? He said, oh, probably would have gained a friendship and a friend. So it's like, again, to teach them how kindness is actually much more cooler than being than raging online and being toxic to one another, and how even if they like to play team played games, it's actually much better to be nice to one another than to shout at the screen and trying to offend one another online. So at the end of the day, what I really believe in is that we all need to take responsibility, not just the children, but us as adults, as parents, as teachers, whoever we are in society, I think we all need to pull up our socks and take responsibility for the way how we maybe are being online, because children are watching us and they're mimicking us. So it starts with how we are dealing with people who might irritate us online. Okay, so I like to, when we do have talks with parents, even though it is about cyberbullying, I start with self-reflection about how you as a parent might be showing your kids how they deal with things online, and that we really need to help schools to address the situation and not minimize it, because I've heard one too many times, oh, it's okay, it's only online, it's not in person, so doesn't matter, switch off, it's okay. But I think we really need to, like, if it is hurting you, it is real enough. It is not because it's online, it's separate from real life. Everything is real life, because if it is hurting you and if it is happening to you, then it is real enough. So for us, it's not to minimize whenever a child comes up to us and talks to us about these things. We really want to empower more parents to actively participate in their child's life, to be there, present in their online playgrounds, to know exactly what it looks like. So in order to intervene at the right moment when something goes wrong, and to provide them the tools of how to maybe to play the games with them, or how to chat with them online. And if that doesn't work, giving them a cold shower on what the laws are in the country always seems to work. Because whenever here in Malta, if a child is under the age of 13 and they are the bad actors online, the police are going to be calling the parents up to see what's happened online. And when we put this forward, it's like, but I don't know what they're doing online, but it's your name that's going to be called. But how am I going to know what they're doing? Maybe it's a bit, it's about time that you start knowing what they're doing online, you know? That gives them a bit of a shake-up. So unfortunately, well, or fortunately, there's also that to support us to get through to the parents. Improving schools also to always provide them with more support. But also, I would like to also put a bit more pressure or emphasis on the applications and on the platforms that are out there, especially to really lean into and trust the trusted flaggers that we are. Because sometimes we've had cases where it is not apparent of what is happening online might be actually affecting the child offline. And for them, because they're not breaking any policies, then it's okay. For example, we've had a case where a child who was being fostered, her biological dad started posting these videos of, oh, how much I miss him. They took her away from me and all this sob story. The child was getting bullied because of the videos that he was posting from her peers. She was not online herself, but she was getting bullied because of what her biological father was doing. And when we asked for this content to be taken down, he's not breaking any policies, so it was left there. So we are able to see the actual harm, but then, okay, we are trusted flaggers, but then we're not actually trusted by what we are flagging sometimes, which I would like to also put that forward to maybe trust us a bit more. Okay, so at the end of the day, we would like to say, let's all take responsibility in playing our part to educate and support children, ensuring they lead happy, healthy lives, both online and offline. These are my details. If anyone would like to reach out to me, thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thanks so much, Davinia, for covering all of that. And I think it really helps to help people understand it better by all the real life stories that you've dealt with as cases from the helpline to bring into that as well. So thank you for being able to share those and provide those examples. And what a positive message to end on as well, which is I think much needed given the content and the subjects that we've been talking about throughout the Safer Internet Forum today. We do have some questions in the chat, so if you're okay to answer those, I'll come to those in the order that they were posted. So the first one is from Penelope. She says, what do you recommend kids should do if they witness severe cyberbullying online? as you mentioned, they're often fearful of speaking up, in particular as they feel negative reactions by their peers. And you did cover some of those ways to respond in your presentation. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes. So sometimes, yes, children do tell us that they are afraid to answer back. Sometimes leaving a chat is a good answer as well, because if you are there witnessing, you are. We always teach children, with your silence, you are also giving your consent, because the one who is being picked on doesn't know what's going through your mind. You might be uncomfortable with what's going on. You might not like it. And because you're afraid, you're not speaking up. But the victim doesn't know that. All he's seeing is that, oh, there are 10 people, they're not saying anything, then it must be true what's being said. But if they leave the chat, that's already a statement, oh, I don't want to be part of this. Or maybe if they feel comfortable enough, they could say, listen, can we change the subject? I don't like what's being said. Can we just change it a bit up? Alternatively, you can also guide your child to find the victim offline, okay? Or if they know them or in another space, say, listen, are you okay? What's going on? Do you need any help? Can I, what can we do together? Or maybe just leave that group and come with me. So it doesn't always need to be a scene action, but some kind of action, I think, would also empower the person who is watching going on not to feel so helpless as well. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it highlights there's many ways that you can be an upstander. And in fact, the more you know about, the more you can apply those in context and do the right thing to help someone, rather than feeling you always have to report or you always have to stand up. That there are other approaches, definitely.
Yeah.
Let me move back to the list. So Stefan asks, what could be the actions we can take to prevent cyberbullying amongst younger children, such as below the age of 8?
What could be the actions is just, I think if we focus on on emotions, if we focus on building on empathy and building on respect, taking turns, understanding that people are different, and that's the beauty in life, that we all have different backgrounds, and kind of to lean more into learning about each other rather than, oh, mine is better than yours kind of thing. I think the approach, if at least that's what we do with the younger generation. We always approach them with those, as I said, we use the friendship cards where we process emotions and to kind of, again, to lean more into empathy, so that they kind of understand a bit better on how to move forward in life. I think that's the best approach for 8-year-olds.
I guess that answers the next question down, which was activities at primary school level. Someone further down, skipping ahead a little bit, asked about if there's friendship cards available for secondary age that are suitable for older ones rather than younger.
We've just had training also. They're called journey cards. They're from the same company, I think. They're called journey cards, and they go a bit more in detail. They also go into like what's a good course of action that they can take, they go in a bit more detail, more appropriate for teenagers rather than younger kids. Yes, there are. I think even if it is not these journey cards that I'm speaking about, I think there are a lot more tools that are coming out nowadays where you can use cards, or they can create them themselves, and then you can use them as you go along to help the conversation, and not just to help them kind of just discussing, but a visual aid and something that's tactile helps when you're discussing these things. Yeah. But that's what I know of.
Brilliant, thank you. I think visual aids are the key, because the one thing I'm going to one of the things I'll take away from this session is Big Shoe, because that's now firmly in my mind, which is a great idea. I love that.
Oh, they love the shoe. Whenever we took the shoe, you have children who looked really disinterested, and then the moment we say, okay, we're going to leave, they suddenly come and they want to hug the shoe and kiss the shoe. I was like, okay, I'll give you your time. But yes, it's always fascinated them.
Hope the shoe gets a clean in between.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving down the questions. So Stefan again says, from the youth-led workshops, she had the impression that young people were calling cyberbullying messages that were mean, irrespectful, potentially part of cyberbullying phenomenon, but not cyberbullying per se. So the question is, do you see an evolution of what cyberbullying means among children and young people?
Yes, I think This is going to be more of a personal opinion. But I think that anything which young children are experiencing as being a bit of friction as cyberbullying, which I think they also need the space to understand that maybe some people are clumsy in the way they put their words forward, but maybe it's their way of disagreeing with you. And that's why when it's just a one-time thing, I know that one-time thing can get amplified. I understand that as well. And that is why, as I said, each and every situation, you need to take it for what it is and within the context for what's happening. But if it is really a one-time thing and there's no follow-up, no other people getting involved, then it kind of, I think people need to learn how to navigate these emotions and the frictions that they are going to come across. And if we try to keep them all in a bubble, like no one can say anything mean to you, no one can say anything bad to you, it's not really going to help them build a backbone or to be resilient in life. And that is why we kind of consider cyberbullying as what was mentioned, something which is ongoing with the intention to really hurt someone. Because it's either could be like a joke, which we also saw could be misinterpreted or misunderstood, and the person does not mean to really hurt you, but maybe there's a miscommunication, which is going to happen. Maybe there's a conflict. The two people are just different in opinions and they don't know how to go about it. So they need to learn on how to voice their opinion and to respect that the other person might be different. And and there will be situations where people are going to be mean to you, but they don't really care about you either. So at that point, I don't feel that it is cyberbullying. At that point, it's more of a reflection on the other person wanting to lash out at the world, and it just happened to be you. So I think we need to kind of see it for what it is and to give the tools for the person to become more resilient. Yeah.
Completely agree. I can see Laura nodding along there. I think we're going to park the rest of the questions. Thank you to everyone who put a question in, but I'm just conscious of time and making sure that Laura has sufficient time to speak and answer any questions that others have. Laura's going to talk about something that's related to this, but obviously not exactly the same, in terms of more extreme content and hate speech and hateful content on Roblox. But Laura, obviously hearing what Davinia had to say, you may have some thoughts about cyberbullying that you want to pepper in terms of what Roblox's stance is on that behavior as you present as well. So I pass the floor to you whenever you're ready. Not working. I'm poised and ready to jump in as your glamorous assistant. So if you want me to share your slide, yep, no problem. Bear with me just a moment.
Yes, I don't know why it's not working. It was working just before, so that's very strange. But yes,
that's always the way, isn't it? It works fine until you need it.
Thank you.
Put
thank you, Davinia Marie. That was such a helpful segue, because I'm going to be picking up on a few of those things you were talking about, not least why it's not that we don't trust the trusted flaggers, but sometimes policy decisions are really hard. All will become clear.
So now it's my turn to take far too long to do it. Hold on a second. Page display. I just want to put it in full screen mode for you, but I can't find that, so I'm just going to share the screen instead. There we go. Hopefully you can now see that. Is that okay? Is that large enough for you, Laura?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. So hi everybody. I'm sure many of you know me. I'm Laura Higgins. I'm the Senior Director of Community Safety and Civility at Roblox. I have been at Roblox for about 6 years now, and prior to that I was Operations Manager at the UK Safer Internet Centre, where I ran all of the helplines. So very much Davinia Marie's world. And so many of the things that you were mentioning just really resonated. In fact, some of the cases I felt like I'm sure I worked on myself. It's sad in some way that things haven't moved on in that time. We obviously do have more work to do in that space. As Gareth said, I'm going to do a little overview. I'm going to start with the more positive stuff. This is not a sales pitch. Please don't take it that way, but I think it's important for context for me to talk a little bit about how we think about these things at Roblox. Next slide, please, Gareth. Wonderful, thank you. So, for anybody that doesn't know what Roblox is, and I'm sure there are still some people out there who don't, we are a very large creator platform. It's all user-generated content on the platform, created by millions of developers and creators around the world who make experiences for other people to then join, hang out, socialize, play, create, learn together, all in these virtual worlds. And so we have around nearly 80 million daily active users on the platform now. So safety really is our #1 priority. We're very much in the mindset of preventing harm wherever possible. Safety has literally been, core of what we do for nearly 20 years. When we launched, we were originally designed as a tool for kids in classrooms to carry out physics experiments. It was built for kids, around kids, and so that safety has been there right in our DNA from the beginning. I work on the civility project, which I'm going to touch on a little bit, which is very much the media literacy and the stuff that wraps around the actual safety tools. But first, the preventative stuff. Next slide, please, Gareth. Next slide, please. So really, really exciting, hot off the press. We literally just launched loads of new updates, new features this week. So it would be very remiss of me not to mention them. You can find out more. I'll share the link at the end as well. So please do go and have a look around. I'm sure particularly for the hotlines and the helplines, it's really helpful for you to get this information in terms of what we are doing on our side, but also really supporting parents with those tools that they need. So one of the biggest changes that we've made, we've been working on this for a very long time, so I'm so excited it's finally come, is that parents can now have their own Roblox account where they can link to their child and they can remotely support their child's Roblox experience. Historically, they had to be in the same room and do things with the child. We still encourage that very much. We're of the please be involved, please be there, please, but please play with your kids. But being over their shoulders too much is not helpful, and it's not always welcome by young people. And it's limiting. Parents are busy. They don't have time when their kids go, Mum, can you change this setting? So some of the things that you'll be able to do are manage your child's screen time on Roblox, their spend on Roblox, and you'll be able to see who they're playing with, who their friends are, those sorts of controls. So hopefully this will really help parents feel more empowered and managing the experience. And there are also certain permissions. So we also, whilst we do have some elements of age rating, which I'll talk about again in a moment, we're actually slightly evolving how we talk about those things. And this is based on conversations we've had with parents and kids about, not every 9-year-old is the same, not every 12-year-old is the same. So putting these really standard age limits on in terms of an experience is quite difficult. So we're actually changing to maturity levels and content labels. So essentially parents will know if there is a horror theme, even if it's a mild experience and may be suitable for younger kids. Some kids don't like horror themes, even if it is very cartoony. So we're going to help parents have that much more granularity to understand the types of content. And we will have, very clear labeling on mild or more mature content as age development goes on. One of the things we do have is 17+ content. So when we're talking about violent content, and we will really be clear on this in a moment, we do have first-person shooters that are very similar to other more mature games. You have to have ID verification to access any of those, and it is proper ID verification. It's not estimated, and it's still very much in the realms of Roblox. So it does not contain gore. It is still cartoony to a degree, but we do allow that slightly more mature content. Not available to everyone. And kids can't actually see those as options if they haven't been logged in as an older user. I think that's it on the update. Oh no, more on the update. So we are limiting. We will be over the coming months taking away one-to-one direct chat for under 13s. We just feel that makes it much safer. They are able to chat in the public space, in the experience where it's out in the open, Obviously, communication is key when you're playing games quite often. So we didn't want to restrict it entirely, but just taking away that kind of closed door conversation. We have no encryption on Roblox chat. We continue to not have encryption in that space. And we also are limiting access to certain hangouts and spaces, social spaces for under 13s as well. And ones where this becomes into a little bit more the kind of harmful content stuff. Whilst we have zero tolerance for harmful content, we are a user-generated platform. We know that teens like to be a bit cheeky, and there are some spaces where they're able to be very creative with spray paint or chalkboards, but what we realize is what might be funny for the teenagers is probably not going to be appropriate for the younger users. So we're also limiting their access to those spaces. Next slide, please. Thank you. You're doing a wonderful job, Gareth. So, as I say, as well as putting these additional tools in place, you know, we hear all these conversations, take up of parental controls is quite often low. We actually hear a slightly different version from parents at Roblox where they do want to get involved, but sometimes they found the process is a bit challenging, hence why we've done this big overhaul of what we have in place for them. But we also believe that safety is our responsibility first. These other things should be additional measures that parents can have to help them feel more in control, but it's not down to parents to keep their kids safe on Roblox. So by default, we have, you know, all of these different things in place. We've got 24/7 support, a growing number of languages that we support in native languages. We work with partners all over the world, which I'm going to come on to again in a moment, and just really embedding that safety by default. Next slide, please. So we have image review, so any video or audio files that are uploaded in any experiences go through moderation processes, both human and machine learning. We do not allow any photographs. There's no selfies allowed on the platform. So that obviously limits a lot of the sort of CSE risks. We have some industry leading chat filters for our chat. So essentially, if anyone was to write something offensive, it's actually hashed out and the recipient doesn't actually receive the abuse. That said, of course, we do acknowledge that sometimes things do slip through the net, mainly because, you know, to Davinia's point, bullying is subtle sometimes. It's not always name calling or swear words. So as much as we try to use contextual filtering to be able to pick up phrases and things like that, sometimes things get through. So of course we then have reporting mechanisms, etc., throughout the platform for abusive users, for inappropriate chat or bullying, etc. Next slide, please. Briefly, the work I work on in civility is really around helping people to understand how the platform works, exactly what we're doing now, raising awareness, but also we talk about thriving through Roblox. So we have this great opportunity in terms of media literacy, digital citizenship, and raising the whole community. So whether that's the developers, the kids playing the platforms, the parents, the educators, law enforcement, everyone who has a touch point, we think it's really important to engage with them. We talk about civility by design. So as well as safety, which is our number one, civility really is the 1.5. And so this is about, you know, helping to make positive, healthy spaces on Roblox, and the developer community really leaning into that as well, and being mindful when they're making a space about how they can ensure it continues to be that place. And then really trying to be kind of industry leaders in terms of engaging across the sector, working to raise everybody up. We get involved in all sorts of different working groups, and specific to the topic I'm moving on to now around the kind of harmful content. We're part of the Tech Coalition. We work with Tech Against Terrorism. We're part of the Christchurch Call in New Zealand, and kind of those really important groups where we all learn from one another. We all share best practices. And then I use that, I kind of use, and an advocate internally to bring learning, and working with helplines and hotlines too. That gets fed back internally to help our teams understand where they need to be thinking for their roadmaps. You know, there's certain givens that we can have around safety, but actually keeping our ear on what's happening in different regions with different potential issues that are coming up is really, really important for us. Next slide. So as I say, global partnerships absolutely key. And so, You know, things like trusted flaggers, we're just reviewing that at the moment. So if people want to get in touch, I'm going to give you my email address in a moment. Please feel free to get in touch. And also, you know, if you have questions afterwards, I know the time's going to be quite limited. But yeah, so do feel free to reach out to me. But, you know, we continue to work with expert organizations because we're not the experts in everything. And when it comes to some of these kind of critical harms, online harms, you know, we need guidance from the experts. So next slide, please. So onto the violent extremism, terrorism, and harmful content. So I just really wanted to kind of talk about this, and I'm probably going to give you more things to go away and think about than answers. So as I say, we have zero tolerance for any of these topics, no gore, no terrorism content. How does it end up on the platform? Now, obviously, we have certain things in place, but we're sort of trying to proactively moderate, prevent content from being uploaded that's obviously inappropriate. But things like real world issues, kids want to talk about what they're seeing out in the world. How do we manage that without it then becoming this country versus that country? There's one example. You can't ban a country from an experience. You cannot say you must not mention this country. That becomes really challenging. You cannot ban a flag. They can be used in really positive ways. We saw kids coming up and doing Palestine marches, you know, when that first started. Then in the experiences themselves would not be a breach of any of our policies or community standards. There's nothing harmful in it. But how do you manage it if there's like a bonfire in a corner and then some kid decides they're going to throw their flag into that fire? That behavior would clearly be a breach, but it wouldn't breach any particular policy or community standard. It's just harmful or bullying behavior. And so there's no kind of systems, filters that would be able to pick up that. And the intention of the experience wasn't necessarily that. So trying to get into the mindset sometimes of the people creating these experiences is really challenging. Something we have, because people use something called Roblox Studio to create all of these Roblox experiences, is a sandbox. That's their creative place. What we see sometimes is these really provocative bad actors, and I have to say, on the whole, it's teenagers really just trying to shock, you know, get hits on their other social media channels. So they will record something totally inappropriate, perhaps, that they've made in the studio environment, knowing it would never actually hit Roblox, because if they tried to publish it, our filters will pick it up, but they can still record themselves running around in it, dressed in a certain uniform or swastikas on the wall or really inappropriate things. And of course, that then goes viral. It's spread across other social media. Of course, it has happened on Roblox, but it's never actually been on Roblox. Nobody else would ever see that content on the platform. And that's a real challenge. Where we do detect that, we do still take action on the bad actors, because we don't want them on our platform. Just because they might think that's funny, there's still no place for that. And, you know, generally, it's, as we always say, it's a tiny minority of people that do the most harm, and they're quite pervasive. So we have no time for that. So as I say, how we kind of tackle some of these things is those partnerships, really sharing our problems and how we struggle sometimes with seeing these things, understanding the contextual side of things. So when we talk about things like, you know, there might be, you know, as has been historically in video games, war reenactments. As long as they're just a genuine war reenactment, you know, we don't, this is part of why our real world policy is we try to be as robust as possible. But some wars are more political than others. And so having a blanket policy can be really challenging. We have dedicated experts in-house who we have brought in from the FBI, from the Department of Homeland Security, from the military, and quite often they can be the best people at spotting, this could be something we really need to lean into, and then that informs the processes of policy, updating community standards, and then it comes to me to go, hey, we're going to go talk to these kids about what they can and can't do and try to help them to better understand. I'm going to throw the generative AI thing out there. I know it's a really hot topic at the moment and quite controversial in a lot of ways, but we're really finding it incredibly helpful internally for our moderation practices, being able to just scale and really being, of course, we still have incredible humans who are feeding the information into the systems and really good, making sure the data is accurate. But it is really helping us in terms of both voice moderation and moderation across the platform, picking up on these signals and getting it taken down in absolute record time. So I think that's it. I know that was a whistle stop. I hope that was okay. Next slide, please, Gareth. I know we're at time, so I would say please go visit the website civility.roblox.com. Feel free to take my email, reach out to me. Happy to have conversations with you all. You are the partners. We can't always promise to work with everybody, but even just having those conversations to make sure that you know where the resources are for you to share, that you know if you have Roblox guides, for example, that you've got the most up-to-date information in those. I'm always happy to help. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Laura, for giving that input on all the great work that Roblox is doing there. So sorry you ended up with a little bit less time at the end, but no less important at all. And the approaches that you talked about, I think, really resonated with what the other speakers were saying about some of the challenges in their area. And you can see how some of those are being tackled by Roblox very proactively and innovatively as well. It's good to hear about AI being used as a tool that really can help in terms of scaling response and developing systems that do respond to things far better than having to hire 2 million moderators to achieve the same effect. That's really great to hear. Just going to take one comment very quickly. I do know we're over time. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us for so long. But there is a comment just here from Mel, just asking about something you mentioned earlier about the labels for maturity, so mild, moderate, restricted, as opposed to putting age ratings, and just commenting on the fact that those labels can be harder for parents to decipher and make sense of. Is there anything further you wanted to say around that?
Yeah, so I mean, we are a global platform, so we do have to take that into consideration. Thank you for raising that, Mel. We did consult with parents. We have different mechanisms. We worked with other groups and child development people who kind of supported us with that decision. I know that we do still have a lot of work to do, but as I say, it is really quite specifically about that fact that just limiting an experience to 13 or 9 very specifically means that actually we are a developer-led community and the games weren't getting to the right people. So that was a really big part of it. So it is offering more granularity for families to be able to decide what's right for their kids.
Thank you. No, that helps explain it. And obviously you've probably seen others doing a similar kind of thing, such as Fortnite using PEGI ratings on their different game modes, as opposed to the PEGI rating for Fortnite as an overall experience, because of the differences in those experiences for different audiences as well. So yeah, thank you for explaining that. Right, I think that's a good point then to bring this session to a close. Firstly, can I say a huge thank you to Davinia Marie and to Laura for giving up their time and sharing their expertise and their experiences. Really, really important. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us today. And thank you to all of you who joined us in this online session for your great questions and your brilliant comments. I saw a couple of people posting links to various resources from their country or things that might be useful. All really amazing stuff. So thank you so much for being a part of this session and sharing those things as well. So we are now going to close the session. I'm just going to check with my colleague Lara. I believe we're letting people back into the mainstream at 1:45.
Precisely, exactly. Well, 1:45 Brussels time. So
sorry, 1:45.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yes.
Super. So yes, final thank you from me. Thank you so much for being part, and I hope you enjoy the culmination of the Safer Internet Forum 2024. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.